إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبثهم من رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الكلام كلام الله وأحسن الحدي حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وبعد. So alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, I've turned out to this late conference here in Birmingham held by Maktaba Salafiyya and Masjid Salafi and the ikhwa wa akhawat connected to them. And we decided today to shed light on some of the issues which have taken place in Dawah Salafiyya here in the UK over the past 20 to 25 years. From the reasons why I myself decided this need to be done is because many of the ikhwa and akhawat who have become Salafi, maybe in the last 10 years, maybe less or maybe slightly more, many of them have become confused as to why they have come to an area like this, Birmingham, and they have found two masjids, both of them claiming to be upon Salafiyya. Yet the other one claiming that the other one is not Salafi or upon Dalal. And this seems to be a problem at this time amongst us. And that's why this talk here we have dedicated to 4 groups of people. The first one comes under the ayat where Allah mentions, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So remind them, for verily the reminder benefits the believer. And these 2 groups, the first one from them are those who were present in this illustrious dawah from the early times, from 1989, 1988, up until this time now. And they have been thabit upon it, not changing with the wind, and not lending their ears to Ahl al-Bida' wal-Ahwa. And I've kept the same mawqif, the same tariq, the same way, from that time up until now. Then you have the second group, who were present from that time till now. But for some reason, in these latter days, some of them have become mutaraddid, who have been overtaken by their desires. And they see things, but they act like they don't see. Some of them, like my mother would say, they play dumb to catch wise. Act like they don't know what's happening, hoping that you will be duped into falling into the bid'ah or their desires. Then you have another two groups. As for the first from those, are the ones who they used to sit in their countries, whether it be Belgium, whether it be France, whether it be Holland, cities from around Europe and other than Europe. And they heard the likes of Sheikh Ubaid al-Jabiri, or Sheikh Rabi' bin Hadi, or Sheikh Rabi' Umair al-Madkhali, or Sheikh Muhammad Hadi al-Madkhali, and other than them, advise the ikhwah and the akhawat, if they're not able to make hijrah to the land of the Muslim, Mecca, Medina, be Kuwait, etc., then they should try and make it to Birmingham. There is a masjid, a Salafi. And anyone who goes amongst them, then these people will teach you and connect you with the scholars. So, this group of people, they left their countries and left their cities, and they came to this Birmingham because they never had the ability to make hijrah to the land of the Muslim. And they stayed in the masjid based upon the advice of those mashayikh. And they didn't lend their ear to every Tom, Dick and Harry that came in and advised them to go here and there, places that they know nothing about. Then you had, from that same group, the second one from them, who left their countries based upon the advice of these scholars. Them not being able to make hijrah to the land of the Muslims. So they left their countries and their cities and they came to Birmingham. Then all of a sudden, some of them felt, after them hearing there's a masjid less than half a mile away from Salafi Masjid, claiming that they are also Salafi, they decided to play Columbo and seek to find out what is it. What is going on between the two masjid? What is it? Let me lend an ear to find out what is the truth. What is the mystery? How will it be solved? And then we found many of them now becoming confused and taking positions based upon their lending their ear to Ahl al-Ahwa, the people of desires. So what we decided to do today was reflect on a bit of history. A rare bit of history, which only some people can talk to you about, in order to recognize why we are here in this masjid and why we are not in the masjid up the road. It's important to know that years ago, if I remember correctly, it was Sheikh Rabi' mentioned a statement. A statement that should be written in gold. He said, if you go to a city or a mantaqa or an area and you find that there are two masjids and they both claim that they're Salafi, then know one of them is Hizbi. Know that one of them is Hizbi. Because the Salafis do not split into groups. And Salafis do not open up masjids 500 yards away from Salafis. This is haram. This is iftiraq. So now we need to sit down and recognize some of the incidences that took place over the last 20 years, which brought us here to a point that we're at now. Now there are people here right now who are aware of this history. Brothers like our brother Abu Sufyan, Shabir, many other brothers here who know about this history that took place. But there are many of you who, after understanding where we came from, will understand why we are here now. So this won't necessarily be a talk of quoting ayahs and many hadith, but it's an eye-opener for those who are unaware of why we are here now and what plight we went through in order to establish Salafiyah in the city Birmingham in Great Britain. So let's start off back in 1989, 1990, with the first of the Salafi organizations which came about. And alhamdulillah, it was our brother, our teacher here, Abu Talha, Dawul Burbank, was from the first of those, Hafizahullah, to return back to Mamlaka Arabiyyah Saudiya, from Jami Islamiyah, back in 1988. Not 1998, not 2008, but 1988. Some of you looking at you now weren't even born, while some of you were probably only 2 or 3 years old. But he returned back here and introduced Da'wah Salafiyah to the Ikhwah. And from there rose a group called Jimas. Put up your hands if you was present in the time of Jimas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 500. Or 400, huh? Were present in the time of Jimas. Now Jimas was an organization that was set up to call people to Da'wah Salafiyah. And Jimas, by the way, stood for Jami' Ihya Minhaj as-Sunnah. The Jama'ah set up to revive the Sunnah. And it was headed by one Abu Muntasir, along with other du'at. And the policy of Jimas was that we're not going to set up any masjid or any markaz or any center, but rather we would just call the people to Dawah Salafiyah in the existing centers and existing masajid. So they would look around to see who would allow them in and who was closest to the Sunnah, because we recognized that at that time no one was upon Dawah Salafiyah. This call was not present in England. It wasn't here. So they picked out a few masjids which would allow them to give their dawah in their masjids. From them you had Balam Masjid in London. From them you had Francis Road Masjid in London. From them you had Green Lane here in Birmingham, and various other masjids in Leicester, up north. But it was recognized that these masjids are not Salafi. Salam. It was not recognized that these masjids were Salafi. But they had an appreciation for the Sunnah. So they allowed them to come in and call the people to the Sunnah. And this happened for a number of years. 5 to 6 years, maybe even 7 years. Now, during this time, at the beginning of the call was pure. And alhamdulillah, many of the people from Ahl al-Bid'ah were refuted. In that time, you used to have the dawah of the Sufis, and the Tabligis, and the Qadianis, and the Shia, and the Young Muslim, which was an organization which were around the universities, and other than them. And this refutation of them was widespread. People used to fear Jimas. Why? Because we used to slaughter and open up the bid'ah of these people. Now, one of the surprising things in those days which made or caused problems later on in Jimas, which caused the splitting of Jimas, which we will explain later on. One of the main problems which we find with Ahl al-Ahwa wa Ahl al-Bid'ah, those who claim to be from Ahl al-Sunnah, from the Salafiyin, what they lack in is a call to this manhaj completely. What we found in Jimas was that we used to call the people to the manhaj of the Salafi Ummah, or the Sahaba and the Tabi'in and the Atba Tabi'in, but only that manhaj with respect to the Aqidah. So for instance, for those who are not with me now, we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above his arsh. Allah mentions in the Quran, Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ever merciful, has ascended above his throne. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Then he raised above his throne. Our manhaj regarding Allah raising above his throne is he did it in a way that befits him. We don't try to explain away how Allah did it. This is our manhaj. Referring or connected to the Aqidah. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has hands. How are Allah's hands? La adri. We don't know. They're in a manner that befits Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are not like the creation. Allah mentions, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. There's nothing like unto him. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. And there is nothing like unto Allah the Ahad. These are issues of manhaj connected to the Aqidah. If you go to Green Lane, or any of those, even Ikhwani masjids, they will all teach you this. Make no doubt about it. But as for the manhaj regarding the deviant groups, regarding wala and bara, having allegiance to individuals and disallegiance to individuals, they will never teach you this. So, in Jimas, we were taught the manhaj with regards to the Aqidah, no doubt. So we would destroy the Sufis and the Tabligis and the Brelvis and the Shia and all of these people. You step in front of any of us, we were tight in that. What happened towards the last 2 or 3 years of Jimas? 1993, 94, 95? Jimas became infiltrated. By who? The Qutubis and the Takfiris and the Sururis. For those who don't know who they are, then as a Salafi you should know who they are. And we're not going to do a long explanation of who they are. It's enough if you call yourself Salafi, you should have an idea of who these people are. If you speak to any of the Qutubis or any of the Sururis or any of the Ikhwanis, they will tell you, Ar-Rahmani al-Arsh istawa. Yes, that Allah is above His Arsh in a manner that befits Him. They will bring all the same principles connected to the Aqidah that we bring. No doubt. But when it comes to issues of the rulers and issues of Abin Wala and Bara, then they go 100% off the manhaj. And they make halal the killing of rulers and revolutions and stuff like this. But in Jimas, this wasn't taught. So what happened? Towards the end of Jimas, those who were in charge got affected by certain individuals that entered into Jimas, like Idris Palmer. And we're going to mention names. Believe me, today we're going to mention names. Idris Palmer, Ali Tamimi. Was that one Abdul Aziz from Bosnia? Remember him, Abu Sufyan? Abu Abdul Aziz. Aina. All of these people were upon this dawah of revolution and takfir and the likes of that. But Jimas never taught that. They never taught the manhaj regarding those things. They only taught the manhaj connected to the Aqidah. So when they came in, these Sururis, they caused a split within Jimas. So now we're at about 1995. 1994, 1995. Jimas splits into 3 groups. The first group are those who stayed with Jimas, Ali Tamimi, Idris Palmer, Abu Muntasir, and all of those lot. Sururi, Qutubis. Now if anybody knows Ali Tamimi, then you will know that he's got life in America for inciting bombings and those type of things in America. And most of you don't even know who Abu Muntasir is or Idris Palmer. Why? Because they are nakira. They are irrelevant. They are not within the da'ira of Salafiyah. Then you had another group which consisted of those people who wanted to stay upon the minhaj that Jimas first started off on, which is calling to Allah and His messenger, calling to Allah's deen and obeying His messenger with the fahm of the Salafu Salih. And they decided to split off from Jimas. Now you might think Jimas was a few individuals, but some of the conferences what we used to do in Leicester, we used to have 3,500 to 4,000 people. Shabab coming to these conferences. It wasn't, 400 or 500, it was 3,500 to 4,000 people coming to these conferences, being influenced by this da'wah. So, the second group who split off from them, they split off knowing that what Jimas and those who are with them now are calling to was dalala. Was something that would take us to the hellfire. The dawah of Muhammad Surur and the Qutubis, etc. Then you had a middle group. Now this middle group consisted of various individuals which now are also nakira. But in that time, they used to do one of two things. They used to say that which wasn't in their hearts, or they used to do the opposite from what they claimed. So from them, the biggest one from them was an individual called Abu Aliya, who in essence led all of the people who were confused astray. As for Abu Aliya now, he's a Sufi. He's a Sufi. Many of the people looked up to Abu Aliya because he was from the most prolific speaker from Jimas. And he was the one that was most loved from Jimas. So that middle group, one of their problems were this group that split off, not Abu Muntasir, the group which was the likes of Abu Khadija, the likes of Abu Hakim, the likes of Saftar, the likes of Abu Talha, the likes of Abu Sufyan, the likes of the Ikhwa that you see now. They used to say, this middle group, these guys, we hear what they say, but they're like new. They're not like us. We've been here for years. We was here when this thing started. These guys only came about 2 years ago. And now they want to split Jimas and start their own thing. This was the marad in their hearts. Many of them. The leader of them was Abu Aliya. From them, you add those ikhwa who inherited Brixton. Those ikhwa who inherited Masjid Ibn Taymiyyah in Brixton. And we're not going to mix up our words, as we will explain later on. So what we found was they were in the middle, trying to unite or get back those brothers who were with Abu Muntasir and Jimas, and at the same time saying to us that we're with you, but we're working on them. We're working on them. We're working on them. At the same time now, you had some of the mashaykh at that time who were involved. From them, you had Sheikh Ali Hassan al-Halabi and Salim al-Hilali, who were at that time under the wing of our noble scholar, the Imam, the Mujaddid, Sheikh Nasir al-Din al-Albani. But Sheikh Nasir had so much kalam refuting Sururiya and all of that, that it was clear the position that they had to take. I can remember in the last Jimas conference in 1995, when Salim al-Hilali and Ali Hassan al-Alabi, may Allah guide them both, when they spoke to the Ikhwa at Jimas, because in reality they did not want Jimas to split. They wanted to stay together. And as far as we are concerned, those who were involved at that time, it was a money thing for them. A money thing. And we're not going to mix up words because you were present there. They wanted to keep Jimas together. 3,500 people. And everyone's looking at you two as the Mashaykh. Anyway, they gave a speech to some of the du'at at Jimas at that time. 1995 conference. Hear the words that were said. Iyakum, we warn you of two groups. Ihya al-Turaf and Muntada al-Islami Jamaat Muhammad Surur. This is what they warned us about in 1995 when Sheikh Nasir al-Albani was alive. At that time, it was well known, the likes of Sheikh Muqbil was speaking out about Ihya Turaf and Jamaat Muhammad Surur. We didn't even know who they were. We never had a clue who they were. But they spoke out. And they warned us about them. These two groups. Before we even knew them. Before we carry on, to stick a pin there. Anybody who knows the reason why Sheikh Salim and Sheikh Ali now are apart, and why Sheikh Rabi' has refuted Sheikh Ali and called him Mubtadi, and why Sheikh Salim is speaking against us now, except for they had a disagreement about the money that they both were taking from Ihya Turaf. So look at this. The same people you warned us against were the same people you were taking money from. The same people. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taqulu ma la taf'alun. Kabura maqtan inda Allah an taqulu ma la taf'alun. Oh, you believe. Why is it that you say that which you do not do? Most hated in the eyes or the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is you say that which you do not do. Anybody that knows what's going on now know the reason why there's a big iftiraq between the Jordanians is because they claim that money that was given to them by Ihya Turaf was stolen by Sheikh Salim. And that's their qawl, not our qawl. Their qawl. But anyway, we get back to the point. So at this time, we, 1995, we know nothing about Ihya Turaf or anything about Mami Surur as such. Why? Because we was never taught those issues of manhaj. It wasn't prevalent in Jimas. So what happened? After we split from them, we set up our own organization. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. And we called it Oasis. Put up your hand if you was present for Oasis. 1, 2, 3, 4. The same 5 people out of the 400 of you. Oasis stood for Association of Associated Salafi Islamic Societies. And yes, we did name it after the rock group because it sounded good. That's why we call it Oasis. Association of Associated Salafi Islamic Societies. We must remember at that time, the reason why we set up these organizations were mainly for the universities. Because the dawah was spread fiercely within the universities. So when you enter into the university, you had to have a name so everybody could recognize you. So alhamdulillah, we had left Jimas. And we wanted to make a point that we were separate from them now. Because they used to go into the universities. So we set up this Oasis. Our first conference took place in the Amana, the Ikhwani Muslimin building by Stratford Road. Alhamdulillah, from the Mashaykh that attended was Sheikh Abdul Salam al-Burjis, rahimahullah ta'ala, was from the Qadi of Riyadh, one of the Qadis, one of the judges of Riyadh. Sheikh Muhammad Adi al-Madkhali attended. From them, the noble Sheikh at that time, Sheikh Abu Anas, and Al-Anjari, Hafizahullah ta'ala. This conference, those Mashaykh opened up the table with all of these deviant groups. And I advise you, Ikhwan wa Akhawat, to return to the Maktaba after this talk. And I advise the brothers from the Maktaba that they must put on a CD the talk that was given by Sheikh Muhammad, Deviant Sects, the 20th Century. Because we had never heard anything like that before. Ikhwan al-Muslimin, Jamaat Muhammad Surur, Takfireen, Hassan al-Banna, Sayyid Qutb. We had heard nothing about these people before, until they made kashf of them. So we stick a pin there now. This is 1995, 1996 now. So we have Abu Muntasir and those guys, they had left. They had taken Jimas with them and they have gone. Then you add Oasis, which was the new Salafi Jama'ah. Then you add the likes of those who inherited Brixton Masjid. And it was an inheritance. It wasn't, they never built the masjid themselves, they inherited the masjid. And to be quite honest, actually we'll go into it a bit later on. Then you have Abu Alia, Al-Fattan. During that period of time, we here in Birmingham, now we're going to bring everything back to Birmingham now, we had a few dilemmas that came up. The first thing, when Sheikh Muhammad and Abdul Salam Burjis was here, they used to speak ill about jama'at, having jama'as, having groups and parties, and naming yourself after groups and parties. It's a mushkila for us, a problem. Why? Because we were called Oasis, which in and of itself is a jama'ah. Then another problem developed by the name of Abu Usama al-Dhahabi. Another problem developed. Where are we going to give dawah? So let's deal with this third one first. Where are we going to give dawah? Because at that time, remember, Jimas had established durus in different masajid. Masajid that we did not hold in Jimas to be Salafi. We held them to be everything else except for Salafi. Here in Birmingham, the masjid that was established through Jimas was Green Lane. So we asked various scholars. From them, Sheikh Muqbil Al-Adi Al-Wadi'i, Abdul Salam Burjis, Sheikh Muhammad Hadi, Al-Anjari, and many others. We asked them nasiha. Here in Birmingham, we do not have a masjid of our own. And we recognize that Jimas had established da'wah in their masjid, in Green Lane Masjid. And none of us recognize Green Lane to be Salafi. We knew them to be Ikhwani, with Lajna Taiba, with Hafiz Sa'id, all those takfiri, Hatta al-Muhammad Surur. Some differ. I can remember Muhammad Surur teaching in Green Lane in the early days, where some said no, he never, it was his student. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. The point is, his dawah was present there. Qutubi dawah was present there. But Jimas used to call from there. Because Jimas' issue was not about setting up masajid, it was all about giving dawah. Now Jimas is finished, what are we going to do? Here was the answer of those mashaykh. And the head of them was the likes of Sheikh Al-Albani, who said, continue giving dawah and calling from that masjid, so long as they do not put restrictions upon your call. But if they put any restrictions upon your call, then it's la yajuz for you to call from their masjid, because you will confuse the people. This was the answer of all of those mashaykh. At the end of them, Sheikh Nasir al-Albani. So what does this show us, Ikhwan? Who can put two and two together? What does this show us? Who can tell me? Nah. This shows us that we were never with Green Lane. There was no we were with Green Lane. This is Kadhib Mubin. Just because you're present in the masjid, that doesn't mean that you're with our people. Because this is one of the shubahat that they send out. That we were with them and we split from them. This is kadhib. Even Jimas were not with Ahl al-Hadith and their masjid in Green Lane and in Francis Road. We weren't with them. As far as we were concerned, these guys were not Salafi. But they were the closest thing to the Sunnah. And that's why we used to give dawah in their masjid. So that clears the first issue that you see going around. Anyway, stick a pin there. We'll return back to that later. Then you had the issue. At that time, 1995, Abu Usama and his first tour. Because you know when people go to make war, they go on tours, you know. Your first tour, your second tour. Well, this was Abu Usama's first tour. Now, many of you don't know Abu Usama was here in 1995 to 1997. Put up your hands if you knew. Four out of the 400. Many of you don't know this. But Abu Usama had just graduated from Medina and came over to England, and I quote, to help the black community. Yarhamukallah. I quote, to help the black community. As soon as Abu Usama came here, he expressed his dislike for those Pakistanis at Green Lane and their dawah and their call. That's the first thing he expressed. He also expressed, I ain't doing nothing in their masjid. They ain't here to help us. They're just here to use us. Some old slavery talk. Huh? So, when he came here, he probably felt that the brothers from Birmingham were able to help his cause. He wanted to settle here in England and call the people to La ilaha illallah, or should I say, to help out the black brothers. We in England could not afford to take care of him. In Birmingham, sorry. We couldn't afford it. We had no masjid. There was maybe 30 of us, 40 of us, black brothers. But we couldn't afford to take care of Abu Usama and pay his needs and his wants. So what did he do? He went to Brixton. So now we're going to talk about this era of time. This time here, Abu Usama going to Brixton. 1996, 97. Abu Usama was in Brixton. They couldn't afford to take care of him. Because Brixton, they were surviving in the masjid by the skin of their teeth. To be quite honest, before I enter into that, when Brixton inherited their masjid down there, and I remember the day, it was called a revolution, when the Sufis who used to own the masjid were forced out. At that time you had Faisal, who used to give dawah down there. You know Faisal Jamaiki, Ta'abani, Takfiri. He used to give dawah down there. Along with Abdul Malik, who was worse than Faisal. But many of you don't know Abdul Malik Trinidadi. You don't know him. But he was worse than Faisal. The revolution took place in the masjid, where they were going to put somebody new in charge. Salafi. Somebody who had to rule it with Quwwah. Why? Because Brixton is not no easy place to go in like that. And alhamdulillah, they chose Abu Sufyan. Because in that time, Dawah in London was headed by the likes of Abu Sufyan. Like it who like it, hate it who hate it. For those who know Abu Sufyan, he lasted 6 months. The reason why he lasted 6 months wasn't because Abu Sufyan is a horrible person. But Abu Sufyan said, Faisal can't teach here no more. Faisal's wife can't teach Arabic. These guys from Muntaza can't come here and do durus. These guys can't. And stopped all of Ahlul Bidah, Sururiyin and Qutubiyin, doing any type of lessons, any type of dawah in Brixton. So after a while, the masjid became dead. Why? Because there was no tullab here. No one was abroad studying like that. This is 95, 96. This was times when there was hardly no one there. No one to give dawah like that. And jimas were refuted. And Abu Ali and those guys lived on the other side of London and were prepared to come over and aid. So the brothers lost heart, and then they removed Abu Sufyan after 6 months. And then they put in Allah Yahdihim Abdul Haq Baker. And then the masjid went downhill. But we will get on to that a bit later on. This is going to be a long lesson, inshallah, ikhwan wa akhawat. Because it's important that many of you understand some of these masail and some of these issues that took place in the past. Anyway, Abu Usama goes to Brixton. And they can only afford to pay maybe £120 per week to do a khutbah. And so, because they have no money. So he's in a dilemma now. Because he doesn't want to go back to America. He wants to stay in Great Britain. Brixton themselves, there were plans that they wanted to do. They wanted to open a bookshop in their masjid in order to generate some fulus, some money. So after a few months, another group who turned up in London, who set up a bookshop and started looking to infiltrate Great Britain, turned up. And that was Ihya al-Turaf. Now some of you need to know about Ihya Turaf. Who are Ihya Turaf? Ihya Turaf, they were a charitable organization. This was the origin of Ihya Turaf. They were a Kuwaiti organization set up to spread the khair, money to the poor and the needy. Now you have to remember Kuwait, in the 50s, the 60s, oil appeared in Kuwait. Kuwait is only that big on the map. You can go from one side of Kuwait to the other in 20 minutes. Yet at that time they were supplying a fifth of the world's oil. That's big money. The population of Kuwait was maybe 900,000 people, in which half of them became millionaires. Instantly. So now these people needed to give sadaqah, because they're going to pay zakat. So here comes Ihya Turaf. They set up this organization in order to gather the zakat of the aghniya, of the rich of Kuwait, and distribute it to the poor around the world. So what went wrong? What actually went wrong is that Ihya Turaf decided to open up an Islamic wing of their charitable organization, in which they put the likes of Abdul Rahman Abdul Khaliq, the Sururi, the Qutubi, Abdul Sabt, Sururi Qutubi in charge. Now their plan is just to spread their Sururi Qutubi dawah up and down the world. So what would Ihya Turaf do? Look at the evil of Ihya Turaf. They would go to a place like, for instance, Kenya. This is an example. I'm not saying they did it, but they did the same thing in many places. They would go to a place like Kenya, where there were probably a few people who graduated from the Jamia who knew Arabic, but they were poor, because Kenya generally is a poor country. And in Kenya, when people are poor, you can influence them to do quite a lot. If you got, like Sheikh Muqbil said, Kuwaiti dananir, hey, the Kuwaiti dinar. Huh? So what they would do, they would go to a country like this, go to some of the Tullab and say, look, we're going to build a masjid in your community. We're going to build a markaz in your community. Maybe 2 or 3 of them in Kenya, because it's so big. And what we want from you, we want you to be the imam. Now, this is an individual, Talib, maybe 25, 22, 23 years old. That's not even got a job. He's probably living on 30 pence or 20 pence a day. He has no money. Now this organization turns up. We're going to build a masjid out of marble. And then we're going to employ you, and we're going to pay you £600 a month. Because we have millions. And we're going to pay a few of you £600-700 a month. Now try and think about it. You is miskin, 20-30 pence a day. Now we're going to pay you £600 a month to give khutbah and to guide the people there. Then, in the summer and periodically during the year, we're going to send our tullab, our kutubi, usururi tullab, and their teachers or some of their sheikhs, and we want you to translate for them. Now let's imagine what's going on here now. You got this miskin talib, or 6 of them, on 30 pence a day. Now we're on £600 a month. Huh? Living large. In Kenya. All I have to do is do, 5 daily salawat, a khutbah, a dars, a dars. One dars for the day or for the week. So, you will find during the summer months or during the year periodically, they would send some of their students to propagate this Sururi, Takfiri, Ikhwani Dawah. These people who are employed now for this magnificent wage, it becomes difficult for you now to refuse to translate. Because you're getting £600 a month while everybody else around you is on 20 pence a day. And you don't want to leave or lose your job because life is good. Life is now good for you. And this is how Ihya Turaf went around all those poorer countries, setting up masajid and setting up marakis and turning innocent people into takfiris, into suicide bombers, into people revolting against rulers and calling for revolt. Believe me, it was I'tiraf and the likes of them that done these things. So now they appeared in London. Abu Anas, our sheikh at that time, Allah Yahdihi, mentioned an important piece of information which we can't thank him more for. He said, because Abu Anas was here, he was doing a doctorate in Birmingham University. So we used to be here for long periods of time. When he went to London, he went to visit the bookshop, where he met Abdul Sept. And he started speaking to Abdul Sept, and he knows Abdul Sept, Takfiri, Khutubi, all of that stuff. What did Abdul Sept tell him? He goes, Ihya Turaf, we're coming to cement ourselves in Great Britain. And We're coming here to target 2 individuals specifically. And we're going to send individuals to target the dawah of 2 individuals specifically. Abu Sufyan Makdawul and Abu Talha. These 2 individuals, we have people we're going to send to target them 2 in order to bring down their dawah. So now, we'll get back to that a bit later as well. Brixton have now got Abu Usama. And they can't afford to pay him. All of a sudden, who turns up in Brixton except for some of the members of Ihya Torah? And I know firsthand what took place because both Abdul Haq and Abu Usama explained to me what happened. So this is not no giddy now. This is what they both told me. Brixton wanted to buy a free 1 to 3 tape machine. You know those tape machines where you put 1 tape in there and it records free, so that you can easily distribute tapes amongst the community and sell tapes. They were about £1,500 and they couldn't afford to buy one. Ihya Torah gave them an offer to aid them with that. But they wanted to have a sit-in first about other matters also. So they had this sit-in. After them saying, yes, we will help you towards your cassette machine, they said, we have one more thing. We want to employ Abu Usama al-Dahabi to work for us. Abdul Haq and his crew of men, they'll say, no, you are a charitable organization, here Torah. Rather, you should pay Abu Usama to stay in Brixton so he's able to give dawah. And Abu Usama will be under us. We will be in control of Abu Usama. Here Torah says, no. We will pay Abu Usama to stay in Brixton, but when our scholars come over, then he works for us. Brixton said, no, we don't agree with that. And then they became at loggerheads arguing. Abu Usama told me personally, when that started, I told him, look, you just forget about it. Let me talk to them. You guys, take a back seat. Inshallah, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever. Let me negotiate with them. So Abu Usama negotiated with Ihya Torah. He used to refer to them as rich Arabs. They agreed that he would work or stay in Brixton and they will pay him. But when their scholars come over, or their tulab, or their teachers came over, that Abu Usama would translate for them. And they would also give those scholars a kursi or a seat in Brixton to teach from Brixton also. So look at the problem now. Abu Usama is not working for Brixton. He's working for Ihya Torah. This arrangement lasted for a couple of months. Then in the summer, they sent Ahmed Salam. Put up your hand if you know Ahmed Salam. Aye, mashallah. A lot of the European brothers know Ahmed Salam, huh? Ahmed Salam, well-known Kutubi, well-known Sururi, came over in Brixton and done a talk. Abu Usama translated. Now you can ask them, brothers, if they still have the tape. Where Ahmed Salam, in the middle of the talk, he said, as for Sayyid Qutb, and Maududi and Hassan al-Banna and Muhammad Surur, all of these are afdal, better and ahsant than any of the Muslim rulers. It's a mushkila. That's Qutubi Kalam, that's Takfiri Kalam. You can't speak about the rulers like that and compare these ones who call for the removal of leaders and incite the people to change rulers and to fight against them, say that they are better than any of the Muslim rulers. And Abu Usama sat down there and translated it. After that, various Qutubis came over to England. And Abu Usama was the translator for Ihyatullah. He told me personally, he said to me, he goes, these guys, they pay me £25 an hour when we go on, because they used to go on journeys. They used to come to Birmingham, go to Bradford, go to Leeds. They even used to do camps like Forest and Dean. They used to go there and bring the people there. He said, them guys, they pay me £25 an hour, even when I'm not translating. Now imagine that, Ikhwan. We're here struggling in England, can't get no money, and you're on £25 an hour translating. So when you're on a journey with Abdul Salam, Adnan Abdul Qadir, or any of these Ta'banis, you're receiving £25 an hour without even translating. You may only translate 2 times for the day, 1 hour each time. So you times that, 24 hours times £24. And sometimes they'll be like that for 2-3 weeks. So this guy came over and started working with Ihya. And no doubt, like Sheikh Muqbil said, ما نحتاج Kuwaiti dananir. We don't need the Kuwaiti dinar. We don't need it. But some people do need it, and they love it. And he went up and down the country, aiding the likes of Adnan Abdul Qadir, who is refuted, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, and the Lejna. They refuted Adnan Abdul Qadir. They call him Qutubi, because he is a defender of Sayyid Qutb and his manhaj. When we used to, now we're going on to 97, when we used to say to Abu Usama, Ya Abu Usama, utrukum, leave them off. You don't need to work with. Hatta al-Anjri, Hafizahullah, offered Abu Usama, he said, I will pay you what they pay you, just so you leave them. Look at that. Anjri said this, I will pay you, Abu Usama, what they pay you, for you to leave them. What happened? He wouldn't leave them. What happens when you lend your ear to Ahlul Bidah? The Salafi used to say, it would be better for me to see my child coming out of the house of a prostitute than to be coming out of the house of Ahlul Bidah. Why? Because, astaghfirullah, doing sin is something a person will seek forgiveness for Allah for. But you being infected by Ahlul Bidah will change your deen. And you will not seek forgiveness for that, because you will think you're upon the straight path. Abu Usama became infected. So much so, one day he went to visit Abu Talha, and Abu Khadija was present, and I at other times was present. When he turned around and said, the likes of Sheikh Muqbil, the only reason why they refute Ihya Taraf is because they used to give him money. And when Sheikh Muqbil, when they decide to stop giving him money, he decided to start refuting them and speaking ill about them. This is the kalam of Abu Usama in defense of Ihya Turaf. So before the Isha, I'll explain that this is what took place with Abu Usama in his first tour. His first coming to Great Britain. He was the one that defended Ihya Turaf. Al-Anjri said a statement to us at that time. Wallahi ikhwan wa akhawat, this statement should be written in gold. He said to us, Ya ikhwan, if you guys do not refute Ihya Turaf here in Great Britain, believe me, it took them 5 years to destroy our dawah in Kuwait. And it goes with you guys, they will finish you off in less than a year. And you know what the result will be? This statement is just so true. Those who have minds to reflect upon what Andrew said. He said, and they will have you believe in your Salafi when you're really Ikhwan. You go and speak to them up there, ya Ikhwan. And they will tell you, where's Salafi? What are you talking about? Why, where's Salafi? Nothing wrong with Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Nothing wrong with sitting with Mami Surur and his gang. Nothing wrong with listening to them. Where's Salafi, Ikhwan? Where's Salafi? No, you're not. That's not Salafiyah. So what if we do talks or we unite with the Brelvis? So what if we call the people to vote and democracy? So what? Is that Salafi, Ikhwan? But you can't tell them you're not Salafi. That's Ikhwaniyah. That's not Salafiyah. They won't understand. So alhamdulillah, we went on a warpath with Ihya Turaf. And wallahi, we done maybe 4 blazing meteors. This was things that we put out, leaflets, refuting Ihya Turaf, using the Mashaykh. At that time, Sheikh Rabi', Sheikh Muqbil, Sheikh Muhammad Hadi, and Madkhali, Abdul Salam Burj, all these Mashaykh. And we refuted them, and we finished them. And the only thing that kept them alive was Abu Usama. So we all came to a head. Where? Where did it come to a head? Abu Usama claimed, alright, we're going to make Hajj 1997, which is the most memorable Hajj we made. When we make Hajj, we're going to sit with the scholars in Medina. And we're going to ask them what they say about Ihya Turaf. So we all went. From them, from those who went with us, the likes of Ismail, Abu Tayyib. From them, Abdul Razak As-San'ani, Somali. From them, Abu Hakim was present. Myself, I was present. Abu Khadija was present. And others were present, I can't remember the names now. Every single scholar we sat with in Medina said, leave Ihya Turaf, leave them. Abu Usama was present beside us, leave them. They're Ahlul Bid'ah, they will change your deen. Run, flee from them, flee from their fitna, the fitna of the dananir of their dinar, their wealth. Flee them, they will change your deen. All of the scholars said that in Medina except for Abdul Muhsin. Abdul Muhsin al-Abad, Hafizahullah Ta'ala, he said, my son goes with them, so I don't really know much about them, but my son goes with them, so I think there will be a good organization if my son went with them. That's it. That wasn't giving ta'adil, praising them. The Shaykh didn't really know them. But all of the other Shaykh Salih Suhaimi, Shaykh Rabi' at that time Shaykh Rabi' was in Medina. Shaykh Muhammad Hadi, Mashaykh that are not even alive now, all refuted them. So when we return back to England, we said to Abu Usama, and inshallah we'll end with this point until after Isha. We said to Abu Usama, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because you're the only one who's saving Ihtiraf now. What did he say to us? He said, inshallah, I'm leaving this fitna and I'm going back to America. شوف التشويش. Hey, look, you never said they were wrong. You said I'm leaving them and I'm going back to America, my homeland. What did he do? Except that he went to work for Ihtiraf in America, in Florida. Wa inshallah we'll continue the rest after Isha. Wa subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.